Hey everybody, it's You Had to Ask, the show where I answer your questions. And this week's first question comes from Sinessa, who asks, Hi Steve, love your videos. I'll be going to film school soon. Are there any quick and dirty tips you can give me? What to expect, what not to, what to invest in perhaps, what homework to do before, what reading you could recommend, things like that. I'd love to get your input. I could listen to you talk about movies all day. Thanks. Well, unfortunately, I never actually went to a proper film school, so I can't really tell you what to expect or give you any tips in that way. I can tell you, I'm not really sure what you're going for, if you're going for directing or for screenwriting or cinematography or whatever. If you're going for anything really other than strictly writing, learn as much technical stuff as you possibly can. I mean, learn the lenses, learn the cameras, learn lighting, learn everything technical that you can. Because that's the stuff that I really have a deficit of knowledge in. I don't know camera lenses, for instance. If I were ever going to seriously start to consider directing a film, that's the first thing I would have to learn for me. Is the camera and the lenses, because I would not want to be I would not want to end up like Kevin Smith and find myself a filmmaker, a director who is, you know, pantomiming the frame to his director of photography to tell him which lens to use for a particular camera setup. I mean, I would want to know the lens, you know? So learn the technical stuff. Whatever you're going for, if you hope to be behind a camera in any sense someday as a filmmaker, learn as many of the technical details and as many of the technical skills as you possibly can. That would be my advice to you. Here's one from Matthew Webb. Why do you think that the West, and more specifically left-sided media, are so afraid to criticize Islam, instead choosing to label those that do as intolerant or Islamophobic? I think a lot of it is a well-intentioned overcorrection, because frankly a lot of people who do criticize Islam are ignorant and bigoted and aren't doing it for legitimate reasons. They're doing it for more ethnocentric, more racist reasons. And in an attempt to sort of cut that off, I think there's an oversensitivity in favor of Islam, where any criticism of Islam, the religion, the faith, the doctrines, the treatment of women, the treatment of gay people, etc., and any sort of criticism of it, even if it's completely legitimate and well-reasoned and level-headed, is sort of handled very lightly, and you can always, you feel like there's always someone in a studio with like their finger on a dump button, just in case somebody goes off the reservation and says something really, really terrible. Because a lot of the critics of Islam, unfortunately, are of that type. They're not making legitimate criticisms. They're just saying really hateful stuff against a group of people that they don't like. And also, I think a lot of it is fear that there are, again, very unfortunately, there are radical, violent elements within Islam that are extremely thin-skinned about the faintest criticism or attack against their faith, and they make threats, violent threats, and occasionally carry them out. Again, an overcorrection to avoid that sort of thing. Matt Broomfield, Steve, I really like and respect you, and I don't say this as a criticism, but given that you're such a very self-centered person who admittedly does not pretend not to be for the sake of others, why did you ever get married? I'm surprised that there's room for anyone but you in your world. That's actually a good question. I don't know. The only answer I can give you is that I found another person who I really love, and who really loves me for some reason, and we wanted to be together. You know, we wanted to share our lives. That's it. You know, it doesn't feel. It's weird that when I'm with my wife, or when we're spending time together or doing things for each other, it doesn't feel like I'm being unselfish. You know, it doesn't feel like I'm stretching myself or I'm stepping outside of myself. It doesn't feel like that at all. It just feels very natural. Doing things that make my wife happy make me happy. So in a way, it is still being selfish. Tac G, Steve, what do you think we as a society should do about cases where parents don't take their kids to the doctor for medical care when the child is sick or injured because they believe God will heal them and the kid is harmed or killed? Are preachers who espouse faith healing partly responsible? That is a really tough question, and I don't have a very confident, clear answer for that. I do have a clear answer as to what should happen to the parents. If a parent allows a child to die because they would rather pray than take the child to see a doctor or go to a hospital, I think that is a case of negligence, and I think that those parents should be tried for the same crimes that any parent who did not cite a religious justification should be. I don't think your religious belief should be completely irrelevant if you commit a crime, and neglecting your child to the point of death is a crime, and they should be punished for that to the full extent of the law if they're convicted. But the faith healers, the preachers, I don't know. I mean, part of me says, yeah, it sure would be great to find a way, to find a legal justification, to pass some law that would allow people who encourage that sort of behavior to be prosecuted for that. But on the other hand, there's another part of me that says, but isn't that sort of like prosecuting someone who tells people to go jump off a cliff? I mean, at a certain point, doesn't it become the responsibility of the cliff jumper? I mean, if I tell you, hey, go jump off a cliff, and you do it, who's really at fault? Is it me for telling you to jump off the cliff, or is it you for being so gullible and stupid as to actually do it? And that's the reason I say it's a tough question. I don't know. I certainly don't approve of people who encourage people to abandon science and abandon medicine in favor of prayer. I don't approve of that mindset or that behavior at all. But at the same time, is it really is it really fair, and is it really something that is able to be declared illegal and prosecuted? I don't know. E. Burwell, Steve. Follow up to Varmint Coyote's question about the Sherlock Holmes movies. What do you think about the modernized Sherlock Holmes TV series, Elementary on CBS and Sherlock on BBC? Does modernizing the characters of Holmes and Watson change their natures in any significant way? And or does casting Lucy Liu as Watson in Elementary change the nature of the relationship of Holmes and Watson? And a lot of people after the Sherlock Holmes talk asked about the modern versions of Sherlock Holmes. Floppy Hairs and Mooney Kate and Rose the Phoenix also asked me what I thought of recent Sherlock Holmes adaptations, either Sherlock or Elementary. I have not actually seen any of Elementary, so I can't speak to that one way or the other. I haven't seen any of it. But Sherlock with Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman is just outstanding. I love it so much. I was skeptical of it at first before I saw it, just because it is a modernization, and I wasn't sure about Cumberbatch because I had never seen him in anything before, and I was unsure about his look. I thought he looked almost like an android with this incredibly smooth skin and really angular face. But he won me over almost immediately with his voice, with his attitude, with his body language. Everything just screamed Holmes to him, and his version of Holmes being very tight and very controlled and very sarcastic, and a very modern take on Holmes, but at the same time one that is completely faithful and very clearly derived from the original stories. Just so good. I can't wait for the third series because I've loved all of them so far. And Martin Freeman, I'm a fan of Martin Freeman anyway from The Office, and I love to see him in anything that isn't related to him being a hobbit. And so I was curious to see it at first because it was Holmes and because of Martin Freeman. And once I saw the first one, I was hooked, like for life. I know if they make 50 more of them, I'll watch every single one. It's just so good. And the reason why it works as a modernization is because it doesn't change the fundamental traits of the characters. Watson is still Watson, Holmes is still Holmes, Moriarty is still Moriarty, even though these characters they are very different from the original stories. They're in a much different world. They're using tools that were not available. Some of their thoughts and attitudes might be different from what they would have been in the original Arthur Conan Doyle stories. But they are essentially Sherlock Holmes and Watson. And that's what works about them, is that they were truly modernized. They weren't just plucked out of the 19th century and dropped into the 20th century like some of those Nigel Bruce, Basil Rathbone Holmes movies in the 40s, which actually took place during World War II. although Holmes and Watson sort of seem like they had just been magically transported through time to the modern world. It's not like that. It's a true modernization. It's comprehensive. They are modern people in the modern world, but they are essentially the same characters. And what makes them special and interesting are the same things that you find in those original stories. So yeah, I haven't seen Elementary, but Sherlock is just absolutely top shelf. LL Evarts, you mentioned that you don't care for the stand your ground law in Florida. Just to be clear, I'm not making a judgment either way on the Zimmerman case, but in general, what are your thoughts on a person's right to self-defense? I'm what you could call a liberal about everything, except I carry a firearm for self-defense because I'm a scrawny, bookish English major and 90% of the population could beat me in a fight. Do you think I should have that right as long as I use it responsibly? Oh, I definitely believe in the right to self-defense, and I think that you should have the right to carry a firearm if you use it responsibly. The only addition I would bring to what you said is I think that the government has not only a right but a responsibility to make sure that you can use it responsibly. I think that gun owners should be required to demonstrate that they can use their firearm responsibly before they're allowed to own them. That would be one major addition that I would add. And I would also wonder, who are these people that are trying to beat you up? I mean, I'm not a tough guy either. I guess I'm not small and scrawny and bookish. I mean, I guess maybe my relative size would stop people from approaching me in a violent way, but I'm not in shape. I'm not that great in a fight. There are probably thousands and thousands and thousands of people who could kick my ass without breaking a sweat. And I've never felt the need to carry a gun. I've never felt the need to have that sort of defense with me, even though I would agree. I mean, I would put myself in the same boat with you that I would probably lose a fight if someone picked a fight with me. But I don't feel the need to carry a gun. I wonder why you feel that need to carry a gun with you all the time, to be armed, just in case someone comes and tries to assault you. Because chances are that's not going to happen. Gerhard James Nell. Hi, Steve. Love your videos. As a fellow atheist, I just wonder, LOL, how do you manage to speak so sincerely to a camera? I find it kind of weird when I make a video without an audience. What is your technique? Just interested. That's a good question because it is different than speaking to a person. I mean, I guess you could say, just imagine that the camera is a person and just speak to it like that, but it's different than that. It's a unique sort of thing. It's like you're giving a speech, not having a conversation, but you're giving a speech to nobody. It's just something that you have to practice. I wasn't that great at it when I first started. I may not always be that great at it now, actually. But you just get, the more you do it, the more comfortable you get, and the more natural it seems, and the more you're able to sort of be yourself and be at ease in front of the camera. And it doesn't seem unusual to you anymore. That's the thing. When you first start doing it, at least when I first started making YouTube videos, I had to sort of force myself to do it, especially extemporaneously. I was always okay at the scripted videos, at the mail call videos and 5 Stupid Things and all that stuff, if I had written down what I wanted to say. It would take me a lot of takes to get it right, but it wasn't something that I really fretted doing. But these videos where I'm just talking off the cuff, they were hard to do at first. And I think maybe it's because there's a hump you have to get over of, oh God, I'm sitting here in a chair with lights on me, talking to a camera, and there's nobody else here. What the fuck am I doing? And the more you do it, the better you get at it, and the more natural it becomes. It's just something that you just have to do and practice and get better at. Logical Cake. After watching your channel for about a year now, I almost feel like we're good friends, despite the fact that you know nearly nothing about me. Does it ever creep you out to think that there are tons of people that know all this stuff about you when you know nothing about them? By the way, you got a purty mouth. Well, thank you, Logical Cake. I appreciate that. It doesn't bother me. It's odd when I think about it, when I think that there are people who watch me on the internet, and I mean, there are even some people who will actually like anticipate a video of mine, and it'll be like a thing that they look forward to, and like, oh, Steve has a new video up. Like that's sort of odd to me. Although I'm also very grateful for it, and I like that, and I want that to continue. You know, that's a very positive, wonderful thing. But yeah, it's a little odd. But as far as the people knowing things about me, it doesn't really creep me out because there's nothing on the internet about me that I haven't voluntarily revealed. I mean, I never hid my real name. I never hid who I really am or where I'm from or anything like that. So it's kind of impossible to doc drop me because everything's already out there. So I sort of don't have that burden to carry. And I'm fortunate. I don't have. I'm not, I was never in a situation where I had to sort of face that choice of putting up a facade in order to make YouTube videos and be able to speak freely. I'm just not in that situation. I'm able to be myself and to show my face and to use my name and to say what's on my mind without having to worry about losing my job or alienating my family or etc. But it doesn't creep me out because everything that you know about me are things that I've chosen to tell you. So I don't feel like I'm being stalked or like my privacy is being invaded at all because it's always been me in control choosing what it is that you know about me. So anyway, what next? What comes? Oh, God. I almost forgot that it was time for
the lightning round. Rapid fire questions, glib and adequate answers.
Jay Hammock, what do you think about YouTube's Geek Week? Is there something you wish was included that you did not see? Now, actually, I watched almost none of the Geek Week stuff. I just didn't pay attention to it. The only thing I watched was CM Punk's Grammar Slam on Nerdist, and I thought that was hilarious. But the rest of it, I couldn't care less. Jarb2104, hello Steve. Have anyone ever offended you by something they said or did that was not directed at you? Yes. Jason, as a fellow Holmes fan, what is your favorite version of the stories? My personal favorite Holmes and series is the BBC production featuring Jeremy Brett. This series is as close to the actual stories as possible, and Brett's performance is perfect as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, I would have to go with the Brett series as well, just not only for Brett's performance, but for how complete it was. Although I also really like the BBC show from the 60s with Peter Cushing. There's only a few episodes of that are still surviving, but they are really, really good. And the Hammer film of Hound of the Baskervilles starring Peter Cushing is great as well. My Thousand Faces, is there a particular film that's stuck in development hell that you'd love to see, and why would you want to see it? Also, why do you think that particular project is in development hell? I know that Morgan Freeman's been trying to make Rendezvous with Rama forever, and that would be insanely awesome. The one I would pick would be The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay, based on the novel by Michael Chabon. It's just an amazing book, one of my favorite recent novels. It came out in 2000, I think, so relatively recent. And I don't know why it's been in development hell for so long. They've been trying to make it almost since the book was published, and it's never really gotten much further than casting rumors and having a director attached to it. But I would fucking love to see it because it's such a great book. Ninth Dallas Mower Expo. Hi, Steve. Larger scale question this time. Do you think it's more important to maximize good or minimize harm? You can address this on a personal or societal level if you want. Also, where did you get that hat you always wear? Well, the hat comes from the Hagerstown Suns. I think I actually ordered it from their website. And as far as maximizing good versus minimizing harm, someone else replied to your question and said make sure that you're referring to maximizing net good. And as long as you're doing that, I would say maximize good. Because if you're just minimizing harm, you're not really making progress. You're just sort of maintaining. You need to maximize good as long as it's net good and you're not maximizing good while also increasing harm as an unintended side effect. That's what I would say. NS Bustin. Hi Steve, I'm really enjoying your videos. As someone who also enjoys writing, what do you prefer, with a computer or by hand? I prefer hand myself. If you write by hand, do you use any preferred journals or pens? No, I do almost all of my writing on a computer. I converted when I was a teenager and I have not looked back. I do almost all of my writing except for like grocery lists on a computer. Finder 100. What is your favorite portmanteau? Probably turducken. It's just such a stupid word. Justin Strahan. If you had to choose between seeing a talk by Daniel Dennett, Richard Dawkins, or Sam Harris, who would you choose? Richard Dawkins. I love that snooty son of a bitch. Terry James. What do you think of Penn Jillette's claim that it's easy to be an environmentalist if you are rich and white? I think he's right. But I would also note that it is easier to be anything when you are rich and white. Hey, that's it for the questions. Before I get out of here, I want to give a shout out. And the shout out this week is a paradigm shattering shout out. We are shaking things up because up until this point, I've always given shout outs to fellow atheists. This shout out this week goes to a group, actually, that is a Christian group, but they're very sort of open-minded and more liberal. They're not fundamentalists. They're not biblical literalists. They're not young earth creationists. Of course, who else could I be talking about but the New Covenant group? Their YouTube channel is NCG Streaming Archives. It's also listed under the name Kaine Diatheke, which is the Greek term for New Covenant. I was very happy and privileged to be on New Covenant Group's The Place show this past Sunday. It was a great time. It was a great appearance for me. We had a wonderful show for about 2 hours. I was privileged to be on there not only with Michael Jones and his wife Rhonda, who are the sort of the founders and leaders of New Covenant Group, but also with Bob Graves, who hosts a show there called The Unconventional Pastor, and is just great. And those of you who have seen the video with Bob Graves and another personality at New Covenant Group, an atheist and a biologist named Greg Bray, who is also great. Their video with Eric Hovind about the presuppositional argument is just outstanding, and particularly Bob Graves, I think is just great. And it was a thrill and an honor to be on with him and to be on with Dr. Jones and Rhonda and everybody else. It's just a really interesting group of people down there in Florida where they're based. They have some really good shows. They're on Ustream every week, on every Sunday for about 12 hours, and then they post recordings of the shows on their YouTube channel, which is what I'm shouting out this week. So, Kaine Diatheke, New Covenant Group. They're a really interesting group of Christians that are interested and open and have a very respectful attitude toward atheists like myself and others. And it was a great privilege to be on their show. And I hope that some of you will check them out and will take an interest in some of their programs, because it's really interesting. And if you're interested, and if you care about having a dialogue and a conversation and a productive relationship with people who are not atheists, that's a good place to start, because they're a good bunch and they really seem genuinely interested in that too. So that's the end for this incredibly long-winded shout out. That's the end for this week of You Had to Ask. I'll be back to do this again next week, providing, of course, that you ask me some fucking questions. Ask me questions about anything. Leave a comment on this video with your question for the next video in this series. Ask me anything about anything. I will do my best to answer as many of your questions as I possibly can. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.